Ready to go now.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the council meeting of February 24th, 2025. This meeting is being live streamed on the Town of Kentville's YouTube channel. I call this meeting to order. I'd like to begin first by welcoming our interim CAO, Mr. Kevin Matheson. He's going to put up with us tonight. And I have regrets from Councillor Baker, who couldn't attend tonight, so he's not here, but we do have quorum. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered here today on Mi'kma'ki, the unceded and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This land is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship signed in 1726. We recognize and respect that we are all treaty people. We also wish to acknowledge and honor the significant contributions of people of African descent who have called Nova Scotia home for over 400 years. We offer our deep gratitude to those ancestors of African descent who came before us and helped shape this land. I'll begin by asking if there's any conflict of interest issues this evening. There's none. We'll move it right along. We've been provided with a proposed agenda. CAO, do you have any changes to the agenda?
Thank you, Mayor. We would like to add under new business CAO recruitment.
Okay.
We would also like to move the second in-camera issue into open session regarding the library.
Okay.
And there's also a report from Finance on the summary of legal billings as of December 31st.
Okay. So we'll say 6A is CAO recruitment process. The library's B, and then C are legal expenses. Are there any other changes to the agenda or proposed change? Anyone want to change anything or add anything? Okay, I'll take a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Deputy Mayor Kroll and a seconder. Councillor Andrew. All those in favor signify by right raising. All right. Motion is passed. Okay, so we're moving on to approval of the minutes from the January 27th, 2025 meeting of council. Are there any changes to these minutes? There being none, we will accept those as presented. We're now going to move on to recommendations and reports, and I'll read those. So the first one is the pool report recommendation. At the February 10th, 2025 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Facilities Manager Nick Gerard reviewed the report on the condition of pool and recommendation to close the pool for the 2025 season. Discussion by members of council resulted in asking staff to further explore the possibility of opening the pool in 2025. So the motion would read that council direct the CAO to pursue ways to secure upgrades to the pool in order to open in July and August of 2025 and further develop a plan to further upgrade in the off seasons. Someone could move that? Councillor Maxwell and Deputy Mayor Kroll as the seconder. Is there any discussion on that? There, okay. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my only question around that is when it's worded that the council direct the CEO to pursue ways, to secure upgrades to the pool. So those ways would be grants and the like, and then also presumably any other expenses to keep the pool open for this 2025 season would be incorporated into the capital budget under the appropriate recreation.
That's my understanding. We do have the Director of Recreation here, Mr. Langell. If he wants to speak to your question, I guess would be a good time.
Okay, thank you.
That's how I read it. We've already talked to the county and we've talked to John Moore's office as well. So those discussions have already started for funding for the pool. So hopefully we'll have some good news for y'all in the near future on what that looks like.
Okay, so sorry, through the chair. So depending on what those look like, it may or may not have a notable impact on the capital budget under your department.
Do you mean from like the financial cost
Yes.
to do it? Yeah,
yes.
There will be an impact if we can't fund the funding, if we can't receive that funding.
If you can't receive the funding, yeah.
Yeah, we've applied to the recreation facility development grants as well through the province.
Okay.
And we've reached out to ACOA, which they don't do any funding for this project, but we're reaching out to anybody who can.
Okay.
To see if we can get some additional funding outside the county and the province.
Okay,
yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. This was my motion, and in addition to the financial piece, the intent was also to determine what needed to be done to open. So not to get every single thing done at this time. So what needs to be done so we can open, and then after that, look at coming up with a plan to do the other things that have been recommended. So it wasn't that we were going to go and do the entire project this summer. That would be too much.
Thank you. That was the motion. I think that was the intent, though, Director, to get it opened, right?
Yeah,
To do what we could to find out to get it opened.
Yes, to do the pool tank and the pool deck, knowing, council and mayor knowing that some of that work may have to be demolished to redo additional work next year, which came from the consultant
Okay.
the following year, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Oops.
That's
Yeah,
right.
go
Through
ahead.
Through the chair. So, Director, once you know what kind of funding is available through grants and the like, will this then come back before council, or will whatever the residual is, provided that we secure some of those grants, will that then be addressed in our capital budget discussions?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, thank you. That's great.
Okay, there being no more questions, are you ready for no more questions to the Director? You ready for the question? That council direct the CAO to pursue ways to secure upgrades to the pool in order to open in July and August 2025, and further develop a plan to further upgrade in the off-seasons. Voting is now open. Motion is carried. Thank you. The next report is on Equity and Belonging Committee. At the February 10th, 2025 meeting of the Council Advisory Committee, Strategic Initiatives Coordinator Alicia Christie reviewed her report on the provincial mandate for municipalities to complete an equity and anti-racism policy, including the development of a separate equity and diversity committee. The recommendation would read that Council approve the request from the Kentville Inclusion and Access Advisory Committee and the Diversity and Belonging Task Team to direct the CAO to update the DBTT terms of reference and transition the task team to a committee of council. Someone could move that? Councillor Savage, and a seconder. Councillor Andrew. Is there any discussion on that? Ready for the question? That council approve the request from the Kentville Inclusion and Access Advisory Committee and the Diversity and Belonging Task Team to direct the CAO to update the DBTT terms of reference and transition the task team to a committee of council. Voting is now open in a minute. There we go. Voting is now closed and the motion is carried. Our next one is Low Carbon Community Feasibility Study. At the February 10th, 2025 Council Advisory Committee meeting, Strategic Initiatives Coordinator Alicia Christie gave an outline of the proposal with Colchester County for a solar community project. The motion would read that Council give direction to staff to partner with the municipality of Colchester and the Clean Foundation by contributing $6,000 towards the completion of a low carbon communities feasibility study on a community solar garden and design in the 25-26 fiscal year. Someone could move that? Councillor Hamilton, and a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, Councillor Savage. Is there any discussion on that? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. There was a section in there that talked about, it was based on Berwick's project, where it said that Kentville can expect an estimated capital cost of $120,000 per 1 megawatt, generating $37.5 in annual revenue over a 25-year lifespan. And then it went into this $600,000 investment. I'm assuming those numbers are accurate. I thought the return on that would be higher, so I maybe will direct it through to the CAO, or? Or
Yeah.
through the deputy clerk? Thank you.
So I think there's two items on the agenda that speak to this request. The point of the request is to do a feasibility study, and that would be to solidify all of the information. But the Energy and Environment Task Team did their own research, and you can see that in the correspondence, that they're supportive of this project. Their initial estimations and calculations suggest that a solar project of this scale and size would be beneficial and financially beneficial for the town. But this is just a step toward a feasibility study. So they did a little research and used the local examples that they could to calculate some very broad estimates. Does that help?
It does, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I think we've been trying to get an environmental project here for 8 years. It was first brought up by Councillor Bolland way back. I suggested solar panels on the pool roof, and then it was suggested on the town hall building roof. And I think it's time for Kentville to have some type of environmental project. Most municipalities have something on the go, and I don't like lagging behind on this. So really 8 years is a long time to try and get something going, and I think I'm going to support this because I believe that we should have something on our books that say that we are environmentally conscious and that we are going to do something like this. So, yeah, it costs a little money, but in the end, how much will we save? So I think we have to look at that. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this? No. Councillor Andrew.
I'm not sure exactly what the project was, but my understanding is that we did do some research previously in something that kind of went nowhere. My reticence around this is mostly just there's a lot of is some of it's political matters that are happening more broadly, and then nationally. I feel like it's a little premature to jump forward. I know it's been a long time, but we could have a government in Canada that is more favorable towards traditional sources of energy, and then where does that put us if this research doesn't go the way we want it to go? Then we've just kind of thrown money at something again, and for that reason, I'm not prepared to support this today.
Councillor Hamilton.
So there was quite a bit of conversation on the environmental task team, and when we first started talking about it, they were quite surprised with that our vote was as close as it was the last time. I think that we should be doing the feasibility study for the $6,000. I think that it was. It has to do a lot with energy equity as well, and I think that's really important for us to support something like this. So I'll be supporting it.
Councillor Maxwell.
Yes, just one more point here is that, I don't think we can ever lose on solar power. So regardless of what a federal government comes in with to support energy production, we're always going to be able to make solar power. And I still think the environment today is something that's very important that we look after. And I just want to make that point. So thank you.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one more question. I'll direct this to the deputy clerk, so through the chair. So once the feasibility study is done, do we have any idea, partnering up with the other county, what potentially could be our cost outlay to participate?
So the feasibility study will address that.
Okay.
It will look at how big the solar field will be and what other municipal partners have signed up. So that's really going to depend on how Colchester has invited other groups and what groups have accepted that invitation. But I would invite you to look carefully at the research that the task team did. They dug into kind of a cost-benefit analysis of something like this. So they are a very strong team with extensive knowledge on energy systems, as you can attest to. And we're really, really lucky to have this. Obviously it's not a council advisory group, but they are very knowledgeable and have been kind enough to provide that additional report.
I mean,
Council.
certainly the supporting information was super, super helpful, and moving forward, we just would have to see what comes out of that report. Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I probably will be voting against this motion. The town has put out money over the many years, actually spent many dollars doing studies for what was called informally the PACE program, and that sort of fell off the rails. We know Kentville has a lot of infrastructure issues in Kentville, and we know that we need to keep our money basically in town, so I guess that's probably the reason why I'm going to vote against this. I'd rather spend the money on projects here in Kentville. I'm all for the environmental projects, and I'd like to see more charging stations, for example, and that type of thing in the town, rather than sending the money outside. And that's what I've got to say.
Thank you. I'm going to just take an opportunity to voice my opinion. I think it's a great project. It's not that I don't want to support it. I kind of echo what Deputy Mayor Kroll just said. We've entered the PACE program twice, I think, and we paid fees to partake in that. We partnered with West Hants the last time, and nothing came from both of those junctures. And if, this could be a great study, and I know it's only $6,000, but then we're likely going to invest a lot of money into this capital project, and I really think we have a lot going on. And case in point, the pool right now, there's a lot of things on the oven right now, or on the stove, and I think we really need to focus on spending here. So, all right, I guess if everybody is done with the discussion, we're ready for the question. The council give direction to staff to partner with the municipality of Colchester and the Clean Foundation by contributing $6,000 toward the completion of a low-carbon communities feasibility study on a community solar garden and design in the 25-26 fiscal year. Voting is now open. Oops. You know what? I voted incorrectly.
You can just do it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're good. Voting is now closed and the motion failed. We're now moving on to councillor reports. So we will start with Councillor Andrew, if you want to give us a highlight of your month.
We don't have it on the screen, okay. I guess I can say without finding this presently. I'm finding them here. Apologies. In some ways, it was a little bit like the past report with the kind of conversations I've been having with people. And a lot of that's been about cold and homelessness, and I think we all invited a sunny, warmer day like we had today. And so those calls and connections, sometimes intentional, sometimes just grocery store conversations that I jot down, but with residents and business owners and members of council and other elected officials from other jurisdictions. But and one of the things that's come up in a couple of meetings I've had has been the need for coordination in our work and efforts to alleviate some of the challenges that some of our marginalized citizens are dealing with. And then a significant shift has, people were rather shocked, and we had two significant recreation bumps with our news of our Kentville pool, and then of course the Wolfville pool. So there's been a lot of conversation around that, and that seems to have shifted direction and motivation around recreation initiatives potentially. So those are kind of fun and exciting conversations, and we are in terms of work. There's some exciting growth and expansion possibilities around Valley Wren, and I would say that one of the big things I'm hoping to see accomplished very soon is that we have an approved joint fire service budget. That's going to feel great for everyone involved. So, and the rest of it in my meetings attended are in my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Thank you, Your Worship. Under the highlights, one of the highlights for me was attending the Kentville Heritage Center open house on Saturday. It was great to honor the first Kentville female mayor, Gladys Porter, and also to see the former mayor, Doreen Taylor, there as well. So it was a very well-attended event, so that was a lot of fun. Attended the Investment Advisory Committee meeting in February. We reviewed the January 2025 portfolio. The chair, Councillor Savage, will give a fulsome report on what the discussion was around the table. Kentville Business Community held their meeting as well this year. Under old business, they talked about the Fire and Ice Festival and the coldest night of the year, which was held this past Saturday. It was very successful from what I understand. New business was discussed as well, and the strategic plan was discussed. That was tabled to another meeting as well. They passed their 2025-26 operating budget for the year, so that was a piece of business completed by them that night. As Councillor Andrew says, the Joint Fire Services Committee appeared before Council to present their budgets, and they've been approved by the committee at large. We had an audit committee planned. It was postponed until March the 5th, so I'm looking forward to that first meeting as well. So the number of meetings I've been to are listed as well, and that's basically the highlights of my report.
Okay, any questions for Deputy Mayor Kroll? None? We will move on now to, Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor, through the chair. The agreement that we have with KBC, it doesn't come due until 2026, correct? It's not 2025?
I hadn't been told that it's coming due in
Then-
2025.
It is, yeah, it's 2026.
2026, okay.
They're hoping to come present to us in April.
Okay.
Either March or April, but it's looking like April right now. I'd spoken
Okay.
to some of them today, so.
Great, thank you.
All right. Moving on to Councillor Hamilton.
So in my report, the highlights were the February is Black Heritage Month. Just a time to celebrate and recognize the Black Nova Scotians that we have around. And that we went to the proclamation that was at the County of Kings. It was a really, really nice event. That was on February the 6th. Also attended King's Remo meeting, and that was, we discussed a lot of, it was just an overview of everything. We looked at the 2024 hurricane season, the past that we just had. And then we looked at the winter outlook, which we're all going through right now. And then we looked at the strategic work plans. They have a really well done work plan up, and a lot of goals that they have looking forward. The environmental task team, I am really excited to work with this team. The people that are on the team have so much knowledge. I'm going to learn a lot from that team. And they are looking forward to doing some big things for our town. You all see the letter, we just went through that, so that was part of the highlights as well. And the rest of my meetings and events are in the rest of my report there, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Hamilton? None? Okay, we'll move along to Councillor Maxwell.
Oh, thank you. Since my last report, it's very light. And I'll tell you why it's light. As during that period of time between this report and the previous one, my time was pretty much spent on funeral planning and looking after family members coming was able to do all my council commitments, so all the meetings and so on, I did attend. So since the last report as well, we've had a series of in-camera meetings to deal with a change in our CAO, and our CAO, you've met him tonight, so welcome. I've had no committee meetings at this time, but since I put my report in, I have had an investment or a inclusion and accessibility meeting, and I also attended the Kentville Historical Open House, but those were prior to this report being put in. I also attended Vida Living and public participation meetings, and there was no training and development. So you can look for a more fulsome report next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Maxwell? There being none, we'll move on to Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. So some of my highlights were, as Councillor Maxwell noted, we had a series of in-camera meetings throughout the month, various dates to, the subject was personnel. Had some various meetings with residents. I have them listed there, and the topics that we covered. There was a public participation meeting, the Vida Living, and there was also subdivision bylaw amendment on February the 10th. The only real committee that I have to report on this evening is the Investment Advisory Committee, and the portfolio is just north of 14 million. It's actually at 14,575,534, and the money weighted net against the balanced income CAD for the 2024 year thus far is 2.39 versus the 1.70. I have a note there. Our current equity state is positioned just as it should be, and we are slated to withdraw the 560,000 by the end of our fiscal year 2025. The bulk of the funds are sitting in the cash account, our investment savings account, with a portion coming due prior to the end of March, a couple of bonds coming due that will convert to cash. I just made another note there that our stock allocation is mixed amongst energy, materials, industrials, consumer discretionary, utilities, real estate, financials, etc. And if everybody on council recalls, we have bumped up the amount that we're taking out this year from 460 to 560, with the 100,000 going directly into capital. Not into operations, as the remaining 460,000 goes into. Regional sewer, we are having a meeting next month in March, and we did have a Board of Police Commissioners on the 21st, but Councillor Hamilton and I will report on that at our next meeting. And that is all I have. Also, Audit Committee was postponed, as the Deputy Mayor noted. And I also volunteered at the coldest night of the year on Saturday, and it was wonderful to see so many folks out. I understand they raised, I believe it's in excess of $100,000. So congratulations to them. Thank you.
Any questions for Councillor Savage? Okay, we're moving along. And Councillor Baker's report is obviously in the package, so I'm sure if you have any questions for him, he'll be happy to answer them. So I'll move on to my report. It was a busy month with a lot of meetings, but I'll just highlight some of the highlights of the month. I did attend the Kentville Fire and Ice, and specifically the crafting event that was downstairs. And I took my 11-year-old, and there was a lot of crafts, and she wanted me to do some of them. And let's just say she outdid me in the rock painting. I'm not a rock painter, and I realize that, but she did a great job. The Historical Society's open house this past Saturday was great, and I went at the right time because I did get to meet the former mayor of Kentville, Doreen Taylor. Deputy Mayor Cole mentioned her. And she was here. We had a great discussion. She was here in the 80s when New Minas was on the up and downtown Kentville was suffering somewhat. So she was a big part of Center Square and that activation and that. So great conversation. She'd like to come in and talk to council sometime. I welcomed her. She could come in anytime and speak to us. But that was a great meet and a great conversation. I met with Jason Clark, who's the principal of NSCC, and he wanted to know some ways that perhaps we could improve the relations with their students in the town with projects that they could do. That kind of was past practice, and he'd like to get that back moving. And it also, obviously helps students with experience. And he reminded me about those 95 beds that are coming, I believe, in January of 2025. So we'll have more accommodations for students. Many meetings with our great staff here over the last month, and where else am I going to hit on? Lots of conversations around the pool with the county as well, seeing if they can aid us in this, and I think that is my report. Any questions for me? I guess none. We'll move right along. So those reports are accepted as presented. We're going to move on to new business. So the first piece is CAO recruitment process. So a couple of things we should do as a council, and we're just going to discuss the process, how we're going to outline this and move forward. We should create a committee. How that's going to look, whether you all want to be part of that, or if you want to make it smaller and have a committee, hiring committee, and then it would report back to council, or do you want to include all of council? I know in the past at one time we had 4 people and one time we had 5, so it's, I guess, a question of, or 4 rather, we had 3 and 4, I think. A question of council, how you want to go with this. You go ahead.
I wasn't sure if you were, I was heading towards a question.
Yes, go ahead. That's
okay.
what I want, yeah.
My feeling would be that all of the entirety of council, I think it's probably the most important, one of the most important things we're going to do, and that relationship is super important. So my feeling is that we would all be part of that hiring committee.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
I agree with you as well, Councillor Andrew. I think it should be all of council.
Councillor Maxwell.
Oh, thank you. I do agree that we should all be involved. We've asked to all be involved before, and that hasn't happened, but I think it's important that we are all involved. Thank you.
Any other discussion around that? I'm just going to say that I think, sometimes people say if there's too many people on it, it can be a little difficult, but I think it would probably expedite things a little bit too, because you wouldn't have to report back as often. Council is there and we can work as a group. And I think it's important. We're not a huge council. There's 7 of us, and I think it's an important piece if we can all work on this together. That's where my 2 cents is, but I guess if there's no other conversation on that, we can put that to a motion, I guess. Let's put that to a motion first, and then we'll move on to the next step. That yeah. Council creates a hiring committee.
Council create an ad hoc committee for
CO recruitment.
selection and recruitment. I think the motion might sound like that council create an ad hoc committee for the selection and recruitment of a chief administrative officer, which would include all members of council.
Somebody could move that? Councillor Hamilton, Deputy Mayor Cole is the seconder. Is there any discussion on that?
Mayor, just
Yes.
probably for, by having that, nothing would preclude the committee though from assigning individual tasks to a subgroup of them. It's just that decisions would be by the full committee, but you can still assign portions of it.
Okay.
So if you're worrying about it becoming cumbersome, you can say, well, we want 2 or 3 to go off and do this piece, or 2 or 3 to do the other piece, and that may help it move a little quicker.
Okay. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, considering what the CAO said, that makes sense to me. Do we, once this motion presumably is passed, then is the discussion around sort of next steps and what those next steps
That's coming next.
will look like?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So I can read that again if
Yes,
you like.
okay.
The council create an ad hoc committee for the selection and recruitment of a chief administrative officer for the town, which would include all members of council. You ready for the vote?
Ready for the vote. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. Oh.
It doesn't impact.
Yeah. Motion is carried. That's okay. They're small buttons. So the next piece would be to get an advertisement up or a job posting created. We have one deputy clerk found from 2020.
Is that the next step, or is
I-
it recruitment officer versus internal hiring?
Well, we can do that first. I guess that would be the next thing if where council sits on this, whether different times we've had we've hired a consultant to come in, and there's a cost to that, obviously. We've done that a couple of times now. Or is the will of council just to let the applicants, their information come directly to council, and then council review them, and, if there's many, hopefully there is, we decide which steps we want to move forward, which ones we want to move forward with? Or do we want to hire someone to come in and do that pre-work for us? I'll open the floor for discussion on that. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I would like to save the money. As people have mentioned around the table today, we're turning down projects because of money. So I think that we could be a little bit prudent here, and I think we're all capable of hiring and going through resumes and things like that. So I think that we can do that and save that money. Thank you.
Is there a motion on the floor or no?
Yeah, let's put a motion on the floor that, yeah, you got one already ready.
That council engage a consultant to lead the recruitment of a chief administrative officer and report to the selection and recruitment committee. Does that reflect the will of council? Can you read that again? Yep. That council engage a consultant to lead the recruitment of a chief administrative officer and report to the selection and recruitment committee.
No, I don't.
No, that's not.
We're not there yet.
Yeah.
We don't.
Well, I would move, I can move that to get it on the floor.
You're in favor of it, though, because then you can't speak against it, right? If you're in favor of,
Is it if I make the motion or if I
if
second it?
you make the motion, you can't.
Okay.
Not moved?
Nobody wants to move it? Okay. So, yeah. I guess let's make another motion then. Motion would be that council, that the ad hoc committee would receive the resumes or the applicants and, review them.
That the ad hoc committee receive and review applications
Mm-hmm.
for the position of CAO.
Somebody could move that. Councillor Andrew, and seconder Deputy Mayor Kroll. Any discussion on that? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, thank you, Your Worship. So the last hiring committee I was on, the one before that, I wasn't a member of that committee. We didn't go and get a headhunter as such, but we did hire somebody who was experienced in that world. So my only trepidation with this, I'm sure we can, we've got a process where we come together and ask questions. For me, it's more vetting through those resumes, and perhaps if we're looking to try and attract a certain type of CAO, how we actually go about doing that. That's really my trepidation with it just being us. So I'll just make that comment for the record.
Councillor Andrew.
I'm with Councillor Maxwell on saving money, of course, and but is it possible we put a timeline of on ourselves that say if 2 months passes and we don't have we're not satisfied with the applicants, then at that point we would explore the idea of a CAO headhunter?
Yeah, I think typically we go about 3 weeks after the posting is up, and then I guess at that point 3 weeks isn't really a lot of time. And I guess at that point, if the ad hoc committee is created and if council feels that they don't have the right fit there, we could then look at, option B, which could very well be a headhunter. We haven't done that before. We've only ever hired a consultant to come in, and usually it's a former CAO who will come in, and they know many of them in the province, so they kind of, or even in the Maritimes rather, and they kind of work that way. But my thought, a headhunter may be something we might want to look at, but I think it might be in the best interest of council to try this way first and see what comes of it, and if we're not feeling that it's working, then we can always go on to another step. Any other comments or ready for the question? Yeah.
That council create an ad hoc committee for the selection and recruitment, for the selection. Nope, that's the wrong one. That's the first one. That the ad hoc committee receive and review applications for the position of CAO.
Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. So probably the most important step now is to get it posted, a job posting. So you don't have that here with you, right? The one from 2020, the last one.
That material has not.
Right. Okay. So we would have to. I guess we'd need direction to direct the CAO to allow staff to create a new job posting and get that up as soon as possible, I guess. So the motion would be that council direct the CAO to allow staff to create a job posting for the position of CAO.
The motion reads that council direct the CAO to create and release, the interim CAO, to create and release the job posting for the position of CAO.
Someone could move that? Councillor Andrew and Councillor Hamilton as a seconder. Any discussion on that? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll, through the chair to the deputy clerk. So the composition of that ad would be similar to the one that was, like the exact same one that was put out in it would have been 2023, right?
Right.
I just think, it would be prudent that if we are the ad hoc committee that is doing this, that the composition of the ad would be something we would want to
Review first.
Review first, I would think.
Yeah, we'll come back to that committee.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on that? Do we need to amend that, or we're good with? You want
Good with that.
Okay, you're good with it? Okay. Ready for the question then?
Motions.
Motion is carried. I guess the last piece we should probably discuss is the timeline and also where these applications are going to go, to a town email or who's going to receive them. I think that might be an important piece because they shouldn't come to me and they shouldn't probably come to council, so we should probably decide that too. I think in the past, if I remember, we created an email.
It went to the consultant.
Did it? Okay. So
We
could
can, it is possible through our IT department to create a separate email address. that
Okay.
Only those, so it doesn't get caught in the
Okay.
larger influx of emails coming across other people's desks. It can be
Okay.
one that I can monitor and then
Okay.
distribute back out to members of council.
Okay, I don't think we need a motion for that.
Yeah,
That's,
that's
you've
just,
got
that's just
direction.
that's a
Yeah,
housekeeping.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. And, we already have a motion that you're gonna direct staff to work on that, so we'll create the, I guess if we need to put in that motion, that we'll give after it's posted, maybe a 3-week window. Or,
Also, Mayor, I would suggest you never put a closing date
okay,
on a CAO job posting.
okay,
Any senior position should never
Okay.
have a closing date.
okay,
In case the ideal candidate, you never know when the ideal candidate may notice and all of a sudden
it's gone,
it's there and you can't accept it because it missed a deadline.
okay,
That's one thing I've learned from dealing with headhunters is they never put a closing date if they can
Okay.
help it.
okay. I think you have enough from us then, and we can move along. So the next item is 6B, the library safety report. Did you want to speak to that, or?
I've only just reviewed
Okay.
it myself
Yeah.
today. But what was, I don't have that copy.
I don't have that
was
with
in
me either.
Because it was part of the original in camera. I think Jennifer may have them there to hand out.
We pulled it, yeah.
That's one package. You just split up that package. Sorry, it's 3 pages long.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I gather this was one that was originally intended to come before you on February 10th, but was deferred.
Correct.
So the library they've got concerns with the current location. Is the size of current space and implications on ability to improve or expand service delivery, safety of staff and patrons on the premises, repeated problematic conduct and reported incidents within both the library and common areas, and overall accessibility of the facility. So what they're really seeking is support from the town and the property owners. It's not town-owned property, but we do lease it for their use, in implementing measures to address these issues. The current contract expires in August of 2026, so they want to, get this in front of, so all the parties are aware of the issues early that may affect future space. And then they also have some concerns that may be addressed by some current actions prior to that. So as you're probably all aware, it has a main library space with an adjacent glassed-in community space, as well as a management office and staff lounge, 1 floor below. It's owned and managed by Parson Investments Limited, and the spaces used by the library are leased by the town and provided to the library through a formal agreement. And that's typical in all towns, that the towns own or lease the facility on behalf of the library board. There's also some other organizations in the building: Family Service Nova Scotia, the Portal Outreach Association, and Edge and Employment, and there's also a private counseling service, and Valley Cheer Athletics. Their operating hours are there. I won't go into that. But there has been quite an increase in behavior-related incidents, and they've been keeping some stats on that. So they've had from January to early November, there were 37 documented incidents in the space. Incivility, shouting, profanity, accessing and printing of inappropriate images, substance abuse and impairment, harassment in the form of verbal abuse and aggression towards others. And I think there's concern that it's escalated to what could almost be described as violence. So that is a serious concern. Both patrons and staff have expressed concern for their safety. The police has had to intervene on occasion, many occasions, and there's been some suspension of individuals from the facility, notices sent to people, etc. It's also being used as a daytime shelter, substitute shelter in bad weather. There's often many people lined up at the door in the morning just waiting to get in to have a warm place. And people spend, they spend many hours a day, which not necessarily in normal library activities. And some of the staff feel it's probably potentially because of the location, physical location of it. However, so there's necessary trade-offs. You want to be accessible for the public as a library, but so there's going to have to be some difficult conversations on that. They've had a safety works consultant in November. They conducted observations. There's a summary of their report, recommendations there to help with security, such as installing a security system to monitor common spaces after hours, procedures to make sure the entire building is cleared before closing, making sure people aren't working alone, doing some reorganizing the layout to improve sight lines, installing one or more cameras so they can people at the desk can see what's going on in the areas they can't see from there. Maybe partitions around the desk for additional security. They did a violence risk assessment and plan, and they want to assess the need for a fixed location or more portable, wearable duress alarms. Additional security measures around the office, such as like sections of the building here. We have our tabs to allow us to get in and out of certain areas of the building here. And parking for staff that it's well lit. And some education, would be an education piece to the patrons as well. So all those, what's talked here in the long term, if we were to construct a new facility, again, another huge capital outlay, or whether we can look and find similar to now partners, real estate partners who have maybe excess space that would be suitable, or that could be reconfigured suitable for less cost than that, and just covered under the cost of a lease. So there's no real hard and fast recommendation in this report, but that the staff felt it was important to come and you become aware of these issues, and that these are things we're going to be working on in the coming months, and I'm sure that there will be the long-term implications will be coming back in a future date, particularly if it requires capital investment. So we'll try to work and see if there's things we can do within existing budgets to help. I know there's I saw an email where they're saying, well, we're not sure how it's covered some of these other things that were never had to consider before in the agreements, so as to who's responsible for, say, the wearable alarms or what have you. But we want to work with them because it's important that they feel safe in the facility that we're releasing to them.
Any questions for CEO on this report? Okay, I guess we'll move on now to an update on legal costs, legal fees.
Was this circulated?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So as at December 31st, we have a summary by category here. So there's been some contract work across various areas. There's some general governance advice, legal counsel, regulatory compliance, labor law, which is about 10,000, litigation, about 16,000 in total there. So the grand total, about 65,000 plus to the end of December, which is better than it's lower than it was last year. I think there may be a couple delayed bills from one of the firms that's coming in, so there may be some late work coming on that one. And you'd also see they describe what some of the categories are for you in that report as well. So that's provided for your information, so we're happy to say, although it seems like a big number, at least we're down from last year, and hopefully we can continue the trend a bit.
All right, thank you. Any questions on this report? All right, we're going to move on to correspondence now. A couple of pieces here. So there is the letter that I wrote for the support of King's Transit grant application funding, which council saw, and that's been sent off. There is the document here from the Environment and Energy Task Team, which is part of your package. And then there's another document that would be looking for a new library funding formula that the County of Kings initiated and wrote a letter, and all the mayors and partners are signing on it, which council has seen. So I just, by show of consensus, if you're okay with me signing that and sending it off, I'll just go around the room and, Councillor Savage, Councillor Andrew, Deputy Mayor Cole, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Maxwell, and I say yes, so we'll get that sent off. And then there is a couple of letters from NSFM and also a document from MLA Lore, which you didn't, and we're going to add those to the package. There's no action from them, but we will add those to your package. So you have copies of them? I'll give those to Jennifer right now. And those are the three there, and but no action from them, just kind of where things sit. I think we're done all of our business, so we'll go into public comments now. Public is invited to come up and speak. You have 3 minutes and state your name and speak away. Guess nobody wants to speak tonight, so we have business that has to be conducted in a closed session, so I'll take a motion to go into a closed session. Councillor Maxwell and a seconder, Councillor Hamilton. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried, and we won't be returning to the regular meeting, so